Stand or nose, Chris. I'm amazed people question Jordan Davis. That dude is a good player. I don't know what they expected when he got here because he's a nose tackle and they expected like 10 sacks from a nose
Yes.
tackle, but he is a good player.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Bird 365, a Football Friday edition, and we are officially off the rails talking about toast spreading. James
Toast
Carter.
spreads, man.
Everybody's making
Chris,
fun of
you got the
Kelsey's
toast
been right
spread
all
right now?
along. Yeah. So Chris Franklin joins us now. Chris, sorry to start you on such a random topic.
What the hell is is that like a cracker or something? Like what's like the toast spreads? Like what is that?
Yeah, Nolan, man. Lane tells him gotta have those.
Toast.
Spreads.
Oh, they said toast spreads. I was like, what's the toast spread?
Toast.
Oh, yeah,
No,
toast.
no.
What's that? What's going on with that?
Yeah,
No,
that's why you're looking crazy at me.
yeah, that's what that. Yeah, you know, it's with the ink. That's something I didn't know. Even then, like I know some of those guys.
No, well, I know
So.
Lane's talked about it in the past. He's always wearing those toast spreaders. So, but yeah, I mean, now I know. I got them spread right now, Chris, in the home office. I got to get some better balance. So
it's important, especially when we're giving this analysis and everything else. We have to be balanced. You have to be ready to go in any direction. So you gotta have Freddie and dexterity ready to go.
Poor Olivia taking random bullets from Nolan Smith.
Take.
I was looking down my notes. I'm like, oh, let me type this up. And I was like, wait, where's this going? Oh, okay, good.
Anyway, yeah. I also enjoyed the Elmer Fudd. I call it the Elmer Fudd drill, where they creep up like it's Wabbit season, and the receivers then explode out of the. I guess it's about explosion, but they're creeping like they're hunting Bugs Bunny, and then all of a sudden they explode out of their routes. It was an interesting day at the NovaCare complex, Chris.
It really is. Is it the one where they go 1 and 2?
That's Elmer Fudd. Watch him. That's Elmer Fudd creeping up on Bugs Bunny.
I was going slow Chaz Michael from where anybody was Blaze of Glory. It's almost like that. Like they're trying to skate.
You can tell I'm older than you. You can tell I'm a little bit older. But you know, because I had a difficult time. And we can only talk about it. I try to put all the context out there, Chris. We can only talk about what we see, though. And it was not a great day for the offense. What is going on? What do you think is going on?
It's a combination of two things. I think one thing was they were trying to work it when it comes to the short passing game. They're working on that a lot, like a lot. They threw some of that one. They're working a lot, and I think it's one of those things where the defense, when you see it after a while, like, okay, I know what's going to kind of happen around this one. The options, you jump it. Second one is you're seeing what you want with the defense, and when you look at the personnel they have now, what they added, you got guys that like to jump routes and be aggressive, and you're seeing a byproduct of that as well too. So I think you got a combination of both things when in terms of that. To me, it's still May. Now, if this is like the second week of training camp and we're seeing stuff like this consistently, then the red flags, I don't think we're anywhere near that. I think it's mostly they were working on slant because some of the balls you saw, you never see Jalen like try to force it. He said in the past that when it comes time to this time of year, you try things that you know you're not going to do and see if it works. So,
I hope that's the reason. And maybe the quarterbacks were pissed off about having the throw underneath because they were not interested in it from my perspective, Chris.
It's a lot of checkdowns. Maybe that's a good thing though, especially having a lot of teams blitzed them last year and it affected them. So get it used in their heads.
Chris, Johnny Mack declared his OTA MVP, which I'm now calling the best football award of May. Johnny Mack's giving it to Isaiah Rogers. What'd you see from Isaiah Rogers? And do you agree with John's assessment? Or maybe you have a different Chris Franklin MVP of OTAs?
That's a pretty good one, especially the way we were talking about jumping routes and getting used to stuff, the way he jumped that route and slammed to AJ and he took it back. I thought that was a pretty good one. Otherwise, I don't know. I know it was one practice. I like what I saw of John Ross. I like the way the explosiveness.
Yeah, John was open on that Mekhi Gardner interception. Kenny Pickett just threw a duck out there.
It was definitely underthrown. It definitely was underthrown there. But yeah, I look at the way granted second team, but I look at the way that you still see that quickness, and you still see in that veteran know-how of trying to get off the line of scrimmage and try to get open. And with this offense, they need a speed guy, and you hope that he becomes what they thought Quez was going to be, and you just need him to catch. If they throw it to him deep, say like a 30+ yard passes 6 times, you just need him to catch 3. Because once you get him to catch at least half those passes, you're already going to expect speed, but you really have to dedicate an extra safety. You really do have to play a lot of cover too, and that just opens up stuff for Saquon underneath and running that. So I think there's some opportunities there if he's consistent enough where he can be your third or fourth guy in this offense.
Linebacker's interesting to me because I started to get the feeling that Nakobe was finally back out there for a little bit, which surprised me. I thought they'd be cautious since he wasn't there last week. And he's back on the field, but Devin White's still getting all the first team reps in 7-on-7. Then they have that short 11-on-11 red zone drill, and Nakobe's out there. So that's a positive for Nakobe Dean. I was starting to think that it looks like Vic wants Devin White to be the middle linebacker of this team. Where are you on that situation?
I think it's a slow ramp up going to next week's mini camp, and then from there you give him the rest and go into training camp. Because I don't think they want to really rush. They want to make sure he's completely 100% healthy, completely comfortable up there. I think when it does start, I think it's going to be Dean in the middle, and then I think White, he's there now because of his experience of playing in the middle in the past, and then you go with that. So I don't think it's too concerning as of yet. If it becomes, hey, you know what, we're looking at, say, Devin White as the start a middle linebacker in a Will, I think Kobe's better as a Mike than a Will. I think that's just
I think they think that
too.
That's sort of my concern. And Vic seems to like Zach Bond. So for the first time, I'm starting to think maybe Nakobe, because for this entire time, I'm like, well, Nakobe's going to be the middle linebacker, and then it's going to be Devin, or if Zach Bond would have to push Devin White at weak side. For the first time, I started thinking, maybe Nakobe's not. Maybe I should use the pencil, not the pen. But you still think he's going to be the guy?
I still think he's going to be the guy. And then we pull him. Like maybe you keep Devin White, say if it's 3rd and long, or an obvious passing situation. Maybe you slide White over as the Mike, and then you bring in another extra safety, or you bring in the big nickel, and then you bring in some other cornerbacks as well too in the passing downs. But I think overall, when you look at it, when we're looking to start to see, I think you see Nakobe there in the middle.
If he's not the guy, I mean, it might be it for him, right? I mean, this is his 3rd year. He's only got a 4-year contract on the rookie deal. If he doesn't play this year, I don't see how they're going to move forward with him, especially with so many people fighting for roster spots. I mean, Chris, I want to go to the cornerback room. All of a sudden, the cornerback room, Howie's got like a big decision to make here. There's Isaiah Rogers is stepping up. There's all sorts of guys who are really playing good ball. You got the two rookies. You got Slay is back. I mean, Avonte Maddox. Now, I think they're going to move him to safety. I don't know if they'll do it full time, but just what do you think of the cornerback room? I mean, everybody seems to be playing hard there. Should be a good contest all through camp. But what have you seen so far from your 2 OTA sessions?
This is going to be one of the positions where I would not want to be the person deciding the back end of that section, because I think it's a better problem to have than what they had last year, because they have so many cornerbacks in terms of that. So there's a lot of questions. I look at the back end and seeing who you keep. You can't hide anybody. You maybe somebody gets the phantom hamstring injury going into they like and go, you know what? You're not looking so good. I think you're looking puppish right now. Oh, what? Oh no, you stay there. You got that. So when I look at it, I think Isaiah Rogers deserves a spot. I know I'm in the minority when I say this, but I still think James Bradbury could be a guy. I still look at him as a guy who can still contribute, especially now that you have Vic here in Philly. I think he can utilize him the right way. I know it's not popular, but I think I've
said that since
I think
for
he can
months.
Contribute. I just don't think they want him to contribute here anymore.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be. I don't even know if he's going to be here June 4th, Chris. I think they might, obviously, if they can get something for him, there's a lot of these goofy people. It's always Indianapolis or Arizona because Steichen's there or Gannon's there, blah, blah, blah. But,
See, I,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. I think I look at it like you got a guy who's I know he's off on like that is when you look at his career, he's off on. This is on
Yeah.
A, it's an on year. B,
It's an on year, yeah.
it doesn't cost you much. C, I think it's gonna be tough to trade him because everybody knows that you got so many people at that position now, and you're either gonna have to offload him. I think it's tough to trade for him. And would you rather get a guy who can still play at an all pro level and you give him up for a 6th round pick or 5th round pick? I see especially cornerback. I think there's too much value that you got to take a risk there. So, yeah,
Boy, they have so many, though. They have so many. And not that May 30th means much, but Isaiah has looked very good. Kaylee looked good. Kaylee should have had an interception. Kaylee Ringo. I love Kaylee Ringo, by the way, Chris Franklin. His upside, I'm talking about. And then obviously you have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I mean, at some point, when you have that many young corners who can play on the outside, I don't know. I just don't see the fit with James Bradbury. But I'm with you from a philosophical sense. I think he's a perfect cornerback for Big Fangio. Perfect.
And then cover 6, half side cover 2, half side cover 3. You're utilizing the zone. That's to me that you use that, but. Yeah, I can see that, and when you look at the other guy, Ricks, you still see some talent in there as well too. And Cooper's more to me. I think he's more of a slot guy. I'm using him in the slot. We've seen him in the slot a lot. I'd use him, continue him there. Avonte Maddox, I think it's good. That you use him as that hybrid. The way you envision Cooper, I think that's the way you want to do with Avonte now, especially as much as team's motion and you got to roll Tom sometimes into the slot. So I think that's perfect for him as well too. But. Yeah, it's not. I think you can really save one of those safety spots, like and use them in that. So
yeah, you get to keep an extra corner. I think that's their whole plan with Avonte. The fact that because CJ wasn't there yesterday, and Avonte was the first team safety, the first OTA was the first team slot. It all depends on health with Avonte Maddox, but. I think that's a very good sign that it seems like the Eagles value Avonte Maddox and his versatility. Because I think a lot of people are saying, well, Avante's he's on the bubble. He might have difficulty. I don't think he'll have any difficulty if he's healthy. And that's a big if. But to me, that's a good sign. Is that a good sign, the way they've been using him for you?
I mean, for years we've been hearing how much the secondary is going to start turning into a positionless type deal, in that terms. And when you have guys that can not only play inside but outside as well too, that's huge. And the fact you got him for 1 year, he knows that he's familiar with the system. And this system lends better towards veterans when you really, especially when it comes to that mad tough stuff and get everything there. So why not have him back here and bring him back? That's what. I know you got a lot of young talent, but especially if you want to stay in this race, you got a lot to do what gets you to win, and you need that communication back there in the secondary.
Yeah, that's a tough part of this for me, Chris, is that you have to balance, because I do think you're right, where this is such a communication heavy system that having guys that are veterans, that's what I originally had said to John before, we had broken down James Bradbury. I'm like, look, bring him back. Help them learn, these young guys. This is Vic Fangio. It's a new scheme. It's communication heavy, but I don't know if they have the roster spots to bring back all these old guys. And then you're also going to keep your young guys on the bench for so long. It's a tough decision to make, but I think they're going to lean young guys. I really do.
And so, and you make you wonder: do you go light in some of the other areas? Do you go light and say the off the ball linebacker? Do you go light and maybe tight end? What you did in the past as well too, to try to free up some of that spot. And who knows? Maybe there's a guy when it's almost near cut down time and they're interested in you at another position. Maybe you do a player for player. I mean, how many times do we see? It's funny when you look at what the Eagles did when they're trying to basically trade with Denver Broncos, acquiring all these young defensive backs. Why not try to do the same thing and try maybe look and get like a veteran offensive lineman in depth or something, what have you, something like that. So I think that's another option that's on the table too.
By the way, and I'm not picking on Xander here, but because
That's all right if you are.
somebody said it in the press conference talking about a new scheme on defense. It's not a new freaking scheme. Why do people keep saying? Now it's a little bit different. It's always a little bit different, but they've been playing this damn scheme for 3 years now, and this will be the 4th year. Obviously, Vic is the originator, and there's always Nick talked about it when he handed off the play calling. It was his offense, right? You heard this a million times, Chris, but it's a little bit different because Shane's different. If you and I are running the same scheme, it's going to be a little bit different.
Well, it
But
is a
it's
new
the
scheme
same
for the
damn
young guys, though,
scheme.
right? It's a new scheme for Quinion Mitchell and Cooper.
Yeah, but
DeJean.
I think Nolan was the one, or Jordan was the one. Jordan, it was Nolan or Jordan was the one who said new scheme. It's not a new freaking scheme. It's the same scheme you've been in. There's little tweaks because people are different, but the philosophy remains the same. How do you look at that?
It's a lot, to me. It reminds me a lot of the old when the West Coast offense was the big thing, and everybody's like, "Wow, look at the West." And then you had the Andy Reid version, you had the
Yeah,
Mike Holmgren version, stuff like
yeah.
that. It's just a defensive version of that. Maybe it's new in terms of maybe you see a couple new stunts that we haven't seen, and we know Vic doesn't like to blitz a lot, so maybe it's trying to map out some of
I'm
that.
sure some of the terminology is different. He obviously uses those hook or flat defenders a lot more.
Scares me a little bit.
It scares
Honestly, it scares me
everybody.
a lot.
Yeah, it scares everybody. So there's gonna be differences, but the foundation of the defense remains the same, and it's been that way since Jonathan Gannon got here. And it's big scheme. They were copying big scheme. I don't know. It's a pet peeve.
It's just basically, and I know this is a way oversimplification. It's just a 3-4 defense that a 3-4. You know, it's like the overhang, what have you. It's like the
Yes.
old school, like Dom Capers 3-4 defense. You just play a lot of zone behind and make sure you don't get beat deep.
Yeah.
That's
Well, even that, I hate that too. No
I
offense.
was going to say, John,
Yeah,
you better
no.
not let Chris off the hook
No.
here. 'cause-
Well, it
I just
technically,
Dwayne Wade just walking this way like LeBron,
yeah.
John Dunkett. Just like, there you
Well,
go.
50, yeah. They use 50 and 40 fronts, but I always say, tell me who the 4 linebackers are on the field because everything's nickel in the NFL. So the base philosophy, the old school, the base of any NFL team is a nickel defense. So the old school thought of base defense 3-4-4-3. You might use that even if you want to use it as a labeling system. What,
Maybe a
20% of
3-3-5.
the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really 5-2 on 1st and 10 because you have Jordan as the nose tackle. It'll be Jalen and Milton Williams as the 4 eyes and the overhang players, which will be Sweat and Huff. It's really a 5-2. And then when they get the obvious passing, that they use a 4-man front. But anyway, it's all labeling. I don't know why it bothers me, but it bothers me. So
well,
I'm
here's a
sorry.
question though, because I know you said about the schemes, and I do understand what you mean by that. Do different coaches use different terminology within the scheme?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Vic Fangio, they're technically learning new terms, and it
Yeah,
means the same thing, but
terminology can change, and
I
there's
just wonder
tweaks.
why that's maybe why one of the
But
young
I would
Jersey guys
think,
said
and
that.
I would think, and I don't know this for a fact. I would think the terminology is very similar to last year because Sean was a direct disciple of Vic Fangio. So I would think the terminology is very, very similar.
And then also, even when it comes to some of the stuff that they're doing up front, when you look at some of these guys have been doing it since they're back in Georgia, a lot of the same stuff they're being asked to do. When you look at the fronts and everything, and may have seen the playbook a couple times in Georgia, but yeah, you look at the things like, well, that looks very familiar to this. This looks familiar to this, just like that. So it's basically, yeah, it's all learning like whatever they call it. Say if they called it alpha on this one thing, maybe they call it sigma on this other thing. It's one of those things, something like that.
Yeah. Now, terminology on offense, that might be the problem. I think these guys are struggling to learn this new offense because the quarterbacks all look terrible yesterday. I'm going to be honest. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Every single one of them. I'm not picking on Jalen Hurts. Kenny Pickett looked awful. Tanner McKee. I don't know what happened to Tanner McKee. That's the worst Tanner McKee has ever looked, Chris Franklin.
There's one thing that I think that can help him out. That he stops doing it. There's an obvious pat when he does the ball, and it's loud too. Because quarterbacks naturally just go pat and they go.
Yeah.
It's a natural. You see him drop back, you go poof. And if I'm a defensive back, I'm not too far away. I hear that hit go. I go, all right, turn around, look at the ball,
Yeah,
and
here
get
comes
the
the ball.
receiver. And that's something I think he needs to work out of his game and be all right. Like I really just
I want to throw this. Chris is a former quarterback, so I want to throw this at you. Because I do you think Doug Nussmeier's trying to do something with Tanner's mechanics? Because they look bad. I've never seen them look bad, and now they look bad. They didn't look bad last week, and now they look bad. Do you think he's trying to break them down and build them up?
I think that could be. Looking at some of the stuff, I thought like when you look at just like the shortness when he gives his footwork a little bit, I think that's a little bit just to get him a little bit quicker to do that. There's little nuances. I think it's one of those things where you're starting to think and they go, and a lot of things it's a different reads from what they've been used to when it came to the previous system that they use a lot. So a lot of things I think it's just the quarterback's thinking in their heads like, okay, I got to look at this, I got to look at this and this, and what's this called, and it's not to the point where remember that Chris Sims video where they're just trying to John Gruden gave him a play and he's trying to decipher and going on.
Yeah.
It's nothing nowhere near like that. But I think it's one of those things where they're thinking like, okay, on this play I have to do this and do that, and that's why I think when you're starting to think a little bit more and you start trying to move around and do things, you can go through the progressions and what you're hearing, you're a second slower. And it's just a matter of these guys getting used to it all. Once they get used to all this stuff, then you'll see it be more natural. Then you see it more relaxed. That first week, I think it's more like the same thing we saw what happened with the defense. They were listening to their assignments. They were trying to get used to that. The offense was working on base stuff. They knew this regular stuff and saw what the offense did well. Now I think it's just reversed now for this week going up as well too. It also could have just been that day and what we saw, then as opposed to what's going on OTAs too. So there's a lot that go, but it's a matter of just everybody just getting comfortable with the new calls and a lot of these two new coordinators and what their
I definitely saw a lot of uncertainty. Guys,
is that the
7-on-7,
explanation for why they're holding on to the football? John said they're it's 7-on-7. You should be getting rid of the football quick, and they don't seem to be doing that.
And that's what I think you see. They said they just like, okay, let me force it and see what it looks like here, and that's what I think you force it into something like that because you don't want to. The last thing you want to do is like quote unquote sack or it's already well, it was a sack. No, that wasn't a sack, and or you're running around trying to pick up yards runners like a 707 DN would have killed you. All right, cool.
Putting all that context, May 30th, no pads, no press coverage. Devontae Smith isn't there. All the stuff we know about OTAs. If you're an offense, should you ever have 4 interceptions in 7-on-7s, essentially? Ever?
If you're limiting yourself to the type of play calls you're doing, no. You still shouldn't have 4 no matter what. But when you limiting yourself to like 5 yards and then and guys start seeing the same concepts and they know the script for the most part, I think I might. And they go, well, I can cheat a little bit here and try to get a pick here. That's going to play in the factor. So,
all right.
Yeah, ball control.
Good. I need some positivity. Good.
But ball control is important no matter what. You can't give it away. And some of those passes were underthrown by all 3 quarterbacks. There are times when they're trying to go. Some of those balls were underthrown, and that's that part when it comes to ball placement. And a lot of times when and I'm saying it's like quarterbacks like they're like this, but sometimes the route's not precise as well too. That's another aspect of that. Maybe a guy was supposed to cut at 14 and they took under 16 instead, and guy undercut the next thing.
There's a lot that can happen. Because Caley should have had 5. He dropped one. He should have picked off that pass, which looked underthrown to us, but maybe it's a bad route. You're right. Maybe Paris Campbell's not where he's supposed to be. Well, yeah, it wasn't pretty.
You mean Joseph Nada is not a perfect route runner?
He's better than last year. I'll say this compared to some of the, if you're looking at, let's say, like the second tier guys, like, and I'm talking about like him, Austin, like look at second tier guys. He's been the one. He's been. I think he's.
See, I think Jacob Harris was the best on day 1. Now he was hurt. He didn't practice yesterday, so that's a concern. He's a fast guy, so he's probably got some kind of soft tissue injury. But they don't have to give us injury notes at this time of year. And yesterday, I thought John Ross was the best of the tier 2 receivers. So I thought it was Harris, practice 1. I thought it was John Ross yesterday.
See, I put my tiers like a guys like I can see like dressing on game day, and then guys who were maybe practice squad or other one. So I didn't think he was up there with, say, he's on the 53. So that's where I put my tier. Like, all right, cool. Nah, you're like Ross. I can see as a tier like in that thing. I can see Ross as 53. I can see him in that. And that's on me. I should rephrase it better. Or rephrase it and saying if it's a guy who I see who is a guy who's probably a practice squad level-ish guy who impressed me, that's where I think Nada fills in for that. If you need to elevate him for a game, all right, cool, yeah. But I don't think I'm saying, you know what, he's going to take Britton Covey's spot, or hey, he's going to take Ross's or Campbell's spots like that. But he's been, I see a lot of improvement year over year.
I should mention Britton Covey because Britton, he's the one. He's like he gets separation. And a slot receiver. I think at some point they got to take a look at him.
That's one guy I've been waiting to ask you, John. Are they not even considering him in that wide receiver room? I mean, we're hearing all these names. I'm not hearing anything about Britton Covey.
They don't seem to be giving him any thoughts of first team reps. He gets such separation. Now, Cooper DeJean got a PBU on him, which I'm almost surprised by. And it was a nice play by Cooper, and then he's playing against second and third team guys, but he just has a natural ability to generate separation. Is it just he's too small and they're not going to pay lip service to it?
See, it's one of those things where if as much as we saw them using the bubble screens and stuff last year, I think especially for a guy who's got a history of being a punt returner and working in small areas and finding creases, I thought that would have been the guy you used that. I mean, what do you have, like 4 catches for 42 or something like that last year?
Yeah.
Like that for it. And I think they used one of them with that too. And a couple of those catches he had were for 2 of those 4 catches were for first down. So I thought that was like kind of telling like he can work things, but if they're looking for guys who aren't going to demand a big target share and that can make some things happen, why not use him as your 5th receiver? You don't see 5-out receiver formations a lot. We didn't see it in the last couple of years a lot. Why not use him on there and maybe use him in the backfield, get him in motion, get him running, and they'd say, hey, listen, treat it like a punt return. Throw it out there out wide and let him go that way too. But yeah, I don't see him getting 50, 60 targets a year. But what we saw in Nia Smith, the same thing we project for Nia Smith, you can do for Britton Covey.
Yeah. What about EJ Jenkins? Not EJ Smith, EJ Jenkins.
Also funny Covey story there, but I'll keep it quiet on that one. But I think when you look at the way that I like that he left up a hit, and for me a good receiver. I like the things I look for as well too. If you can go up there in a tight spot and make a good hands catch, not let it jump up and let him catch the ball. You see so many guys do now. He's got some good hands. I thought he did a decent job on there. He's another guy who's a good depth guy, is a good camp guy. I think maybe he makes the slot. He gets one of those like 2 or 3 in the practice squad, but it's tough. It's tough to, like, in between cornerback and wide receiver. Those are 2 positions that are really tough depth wise. That you're going to lose. You're going to lose somebody. Yeah, I think if you see a couple of these corners that you see on this roster now.
Corner, yeah. I don't know what it is about this team, but they seem to default to Alberto and Grant Calcaterra, and they've done nothing. EJ Jenkins, again, it's May. We'll see if he can block at all. But he's made some plays, and he had the good seam route from Kenny Pickett deep in the first practice. He had a back shoulder, whereas you mentioned he was good hands catcher. I think Grant and Albert should be on the bubble. I mean, I don't know why everybody defaults to those guys.
Well, I think one of them too will be, and it's tough. And it's tough to see which one you do. Like, and then you got Justified. I think Uzuma. I think you just need a true blocking tight end on this team.
That's CJ.
Well, who do you guys have then as the leader in the clubhouse for tight end 3 then? If you have Goddard and then
I have Alberto because how he traded for him.
That's the he usually asset to get him. That's what I think is you sent away an asset to get it, and even though you still use Grant to get it too, but. And I think it's Albert, and the fact they kept him around on the roster so long last year. You kept 4 tight ends on the roster. It's like, okay, That was a surprise. I first saw that one too. So I think,
And
I
it
think
was a
Allen
surprise.
is the thing.
How surprised were you that they signed him so quickly? It didn't even
Yeah.
get like I assumed. All right, Albert's gone. It didn't work out, and then they sign him and then bring him back. I think that indicates a lot that
And
they
then
want
Grant,
him. Yeah,
yeah. Then Grant, you got to worry about his availability. He's been injured a lot in his short tenure
yeah,
here. So that's another thing you got to worry about as well too.
yeah, yeah.
Make
All
sure
right.
everybody follows Chris Franklin on Twitter at @CFranklinNews or on X, whatever you call it nowadays, and read all his work at NJ.com. He does great work. Chris, anything we missed that stood out to you in your 2 days at OTAs? I know it's spring football, but it's the only thing we've gotten, and we do learn a lot. I said to John yesterday, I think fans and me, we take you guys for granted sometimes. We wouldn't know anything about this team right now if you guys weren't down there. So we did get a lot of information the last 2 times. Anything we missed that you took away from the 2 OTAs?
I think when you look at the Tyler Steen and the way that when you look at his fundamentals and the way that he's put his footwork and his playing that right guard, I think he's improved in that area as well too. I think it's an improvement there. And I look at the Jordan Davis, how we always saw how quick he was when he ran down Josh Allen and in
Yeah,
that game last
amazing.
year.
That was
He's
amazing.
I still can't believe I'm like, hey,
people
he
on
did
that
that?
Buffalo sideline still
The
talk about
Buffalo
that.
sideline was they were like, what the hell?
Yeah. We had a guy on our afternoon
Yeah.
show, Dan Cilia, who works in Buffalo, and he was like, months later, he was raving about that play because Dan asked him
Yeah.
about Jordan Davis. He's like, I think that guy's going to be okay.
Xander knows, Chris. I'm amazed people question Jordan Davis. That dude is a good player. I don't know what they expected when he got here because he's a nose tackle and they expected like 10 sacks from a nose tackle, but he is a good player. He needs to play more and he's gotten in better condition. He's 350, but a different 350, he mentioned. He cut out the juice. He's going to Whole Foods and getting the mango.
Yeah.
He gave the
part of
plug to
Breakfast
Whole
Club.
Foods. Yeah. Breakfast Club. A lot of good stuff yesterday. Yeah. Going back to the toe spreaders and yeah, I got to
toe
cut
spreaders
out
on toast spreaders. Okay, got it.
toe spreaders. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Nolan Smith too. Boy, he's an energy guy. If he can play, he's Brandon Graham's replacement as the energy guy.
And that's the big if. I want to see consistency out of them. Like, and I want to see him remain on the field, and I want to see them use that quickness and get around the corner and do that. And if he finishes like 4 or 5 sacks this year, I think that's out of what he can give. That's markedly better.
And he's up to 245, but I do think Nolan should tell the truth about that damn shoulder. I mean, that was a problem for him last year. I mean, we all knew it.
Yeah.
He's got the damn harness on all year. He admitted. What was that quote? That great quote. It's my baby. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, but that's what he
not
said.
a good quote for Nolan to say. He must have been briefed about that one afterward.
Yeah. That's one of those things. Like you're like, all right, and that's tough, especially once you try to lean into those offensive linemen, you're trying to fight off them. You don't get your shoulder. Yeah, it was there. You can tell that too. I think it's one of those things where you say, hey, don't harp on your injuries. Don't think about the injuries, and you move forward from there. Or you think more, you hurt, and you slow yourself down. But yeah, it was there. It was definitely there. You're seeing that issues with that.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Chris Franklin. Thanks for joining the show, man. We'll talk to you soon. Great takeaways from OTAs. Great work at NJ.com. Make sure everybody follows him on Twitter. He does great work there as well. Chris, thanks for joining the show, man. We appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend now.
Thanks, bud.
Good weekend coming up here for Eagles. And next weekend, Johnny Mac, we mentioned it. They're back out there, man. Mini camp, 4th to the 6th. So what is that, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week?
Good question. I haven't looked at the calendar.
Pull my calendar. I'll do it for you.
First mini camp of
Wednesday,
the
Thursday,
Nick Sirianni era. Don't be surprised if that last day is canceled. A lot of NFL teams do that nowadays. They go have the bonding experience, get out of school.
You're kidding me. You're telling me what we get the first mini camp of Sirianni.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's 100%, especially because they have new coordinators and they need to get things down. But a lot of teams cancel that last day. It's, it's sort of become a thing, and they'll go out and have some kind of bonding experience. So don't be surprised. I just throw it out there.
Based on what you just said, now I'm feeling like they're going to cancel that third day.
Yeah, it's
Eagles love that stuff. Oh, everybody's doing it. Oh, everybody wants to cancel the day 3. Or
well, they would do it before when they had mini camps. So Doug would do it. They would cancel the last day.
All right, well, hopefully we'll get at least 2 days next week. So good things. Johnny Mac, any final takeaways, any final things you want to say about your trip down to NovaCare for OTAs this week?
I think we hit it all. I'm trying to think. I'm glad, and I give credit to our buddy Jeff Kerr and Tim McManus, my buddy as well. They saw Nakobe in there with the short 11-on-11 session, and that's where Jalen had an opportunity to throw the touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. So maybe 3 plays he was in there, which is a good thing for Nakobe, and I missed that. So hat tip to those guys, and you can trust those guys. Yeah, but good session overall. A lot of good stuff. Toe spreaders, number 1. Not toast, toe.
Toe spreaders, number 1. And offense, time to step up, I would say, is number 2. Not an impressive performance at OTAs. Fans will make of that what they will. I don't think we overreacted. I think we were appropriate in our analysis, but time to be better. You don't want 4 or 5 interceptions in 7-on-7s, and they did that.
As Chris also pointed out, you're working on some stuff, and they were, and that's a good because they were definitely throwing a lot of underneath stuff. So maybe that was the plan. Maybe that was what they were trying to work on. And it was ugly, but sometimes it's ugly, like a spring training pitcher, like I said.
Yep, exactly. So it makes sense. Let's get out of here. Johnny Mac, good week of shows this week. A shortened week, went by quick with no Monday from Memorial Day, remembering all of our soldiers who passed. But a good week nonetheless, and we appreciate everybody in the chat for being here. If you guys are in here, make sure you like the show on your way out. Still about 300 of you in there watching on YouTube and 500 across JAKIB platforms. So we appreciate all of you. Johnny Mac, we appreciate you. We appreciate the OTA coverage. Great work by you as always, and we'll catch you on Monday. Thank you for this week of shows, my friend.
Thank you, Xander, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody. We will catch you on Monday for Monday's edition of Birds 365. See you guys then.